Welcome friends. Today what we are going to discuss in this video in Excel is cell referencing. We all know that Excel is the most strongest tool. Do we all agree with that? That Excel is the most strongest tool or the most useful tool available for any kind of data manipulation, working with the data analysis. The basic thing in Excel, the first thing what we are going to look at in the series of these videos, what I have named them as adding power to Excel. The first video what we are going to look at now today is about the cell referencing. Now first let's understand what it is all about. We all know we can do any kind of calculation, whether it is formulas or functions in Excel, and we prefer to use references of a cell. Now when we talk about references of a cell, what do we mean? It's basically every cell has a name or an address, as we call it, or a reference, which is combination of the column heading and the row number. Now if you look at it, for example, the scenario here, if I click on this particular cell which has the title or the value as amount, we can see that it is F3. This is a cell reference what we all talk about, that this is a cell reference F3, G3, F5, E. So these are the cell references of every cell what we are looking at. So every single cell in an Excel sheet has a reference, and this gives us the flexibility of writing formulas or functions. Now for example, if we want to do a calculation in a particular cell where we want to multiply this amount with a particular number, let's say 44816, we want to multiply it with by 5. So what we do is, we know we start with an equal to symbol. All formulas start with an equal to symbol, or calculations start with an equal to symbol. We click on the cell, so we get the cell reference and multiply it by 5. So we get the result here. Now the benefit of using the cell reference here, we all know, is if we drag this formula down, or even if we double click on the right hand corner of the cell, the formula gets copied, and when it gets copied, the cell reference what we had used here, in this case we had used F4, automatically changes to F5. Do we all agree? And this is what we call it as relative reference. Now in Excel, most commonly what we use is the relative reference, where the cell reference changes as you copy the formula from one cell to the other cell. Now there are two things what we need to remember here. One is, if we copy the formula row wise, that is from row number 4 to row number 5, in the cell reference 4 will change to 5, F4 will change to F5. On the other hand, if we copy the formula to the next column, the column reference changes, that is F, which was there in this cell, now will change to G4. Are we getting it? So let us understand one thing here. Whenever we are giving cell reference, we say column name and row number, and we call it as F4. And this is very simple, and the benefit here, we know that if we change any cell, any value in the cell, automatically the cell reference change, the value, the result changes. If you see, I changed the value just now and my results have changed. Now let us look at another scenario here. Let's say tomorrow you want to test some numbers, and you don't want to multiply it by 5, you want to multiply it by, let's say, 10. So what you'll have to do? Yes, you'll have to come to the formula and retype the formula, where you will change 5 to 10 and then copy the formula all over again, so that you get that result whatever is expected. So what we do is, instead of changing the formula, as we discussed earlier, as I said, pointed out earlier, avoid using fixed values in your formula. Now in this case, if we look at it, F4 was a cell reference, but 10 was a fixed value. You see that? Now the moment you have a fixed value in a formula or a calculation, it becomes difficult for us, or the formula is not dynamic, it's not effective, it's not more, it cannot be changed, or it does not affect with, it cannot be reused anywhere else. So what we try to do is we try to make our formula more effective or and easy to use and dynamic. So if something changes, automatically my calculation would change and we would make a formula as one time formula. Now in this scenario what we are discussing, let's say I want to multiply this with 5 and tomorrow if I change it to 10, automatically it should work. So I have kept this number here 5% in cell G2, and what I have is a value here in cell F4. What I just simply need to do is equal to F4 multiplied by G2, that is 5% of this value. Great, we got this. Now you all will say yes, we have got this value, and if we copy this formula down, what will happen? Do you see what happens? This becomes value, this becomes some number which we cannot even understand. What is the reason for this? So as I said, relative reference first. Relative reference does what? What was the value here? What was the cell reference here? F4 multiplied by G2. And what we saw that by default, as a standard, all calculation in Excel use relative reference. Now when I come down to the next cell, so what will change? 4 will change to, what is the formula here? F4 and G2. So 4 should change to 5 and 2 will change to 3. Very good. So I am happy with 4. I am happy with F5 because there is a value, but what is the problem with G3? Do I want this? So what shall we do here? Excel gives another way of doing this is, or more effective way of doing this is fixing. So let's try to understand the formula first here. We want F4 multiplied by G2. This gives me a value. Now let's open the formula again and analyze your formula and just read through the formula and see. If I want to copy the formula to the next row, F4 will change to F5. Is that okay with you? If that is okay, just leave that cell there. But what will happen if you copy the formula to the next row? G2 will change to G3. Do you want to change G2 to G3? No, we don't want to change G2 to G3. So friends, we want to fix this. So fix this cell reference. Now when we fix this cell reference, we put a dollar before G and a dollar before 2. Now you can type this manually, or you can use the shortcut key on your keyboard, that is F4, the function key on your keyboard, F4, and it will get fixed. But here just remember, when we say the statement here, we say dollar before G, that is the column name, and dollar before the row number. If somebody says dollar before G and dollar after G, please ignore that person. It is dollar before the column name and dollar before the row number. We'll just come back to this thing in a minute. Now we will press enter and we get the result. So let's copy this formula to the next row and so on till the end. So do you see the result here? What is the formula here? F4 multiplied by G2. When we copy it down, F4 multiplied by G2. Now this is when we have put $G, $2 here, this is referred to as fixed referencing. Now here F4 is a relative reference, $G, $2 is a fixed reference. But there is one more thing what we want to do here. I want in another column to use 10%. So if I copy this formula to the next column, so what will happen here, friends? My F, which was there in column G, will change to G. But $G$2 will remain the same, that is 5%. So now what we are getting is, we are getting 5% of this number. We are not getting 10% of the original number. So we want a scenario where we should be writing the formula or the calculation only one time in this cell, that is G4, and we should be able to copy it to the next set of columns, that is, let's say H, I in this case, and the rows downwards. So let's see how do we do it. Let's rewrite the formula the first time. So what we do in this case is do something like this. In the cell G4, what I do, I say, we know that we have to do this multiplied by 5%. Great. Now let's come to the next concept here. We want now, this is the tip. What I can tell you here is how to fix what you want to fix. When we said $G, that is dollar before the column name and dollar before the row number, we said it is a fixed reference. But there is a thing where we have something called as a mixed reference, where you can either fix a column or a row based on the scenario. Now let's see how do we do that. So in this case, ask yourself, do you want F to change to G? Okay, let's take it this way. What I want to do is, I want this formula to be copied to the next set of rows. That is the first question you will ask yourself after writing the formula for the first time. Answer is yes in this case. So in this case, now break up the formula. When I say break up the formula, read the formulas, all the cell references which are there one at a time. Now if I say F4, what will happen to F4 when we copy it to the next row? 4 will change to 5. Ask yourself, am I happy with it? 4 changing to 5? Yes, I want 4 to change to 5. That means that's okay. Ignore this. Now come to the next cell reference where we are saying G2. Now if we will copy the, ask yourself again the same question. If I will copy this formula to the next row, 2 will change to 3. Am I happy? Am I okay with it? No, we are not okay with it, right? So what do we want? We want to fix the row. So you put a dollar before the row number 2, that is before 2, or you can press F4 key on your keyboard 2 times and it fixes the row. That sorts out my row issue. That is, when I copy the formula to the next set of rows, my row number will not change. But now ask yourself, do you want to copy this formula to the next column? Yes, because we want 3 different things. So what do? We say yes. So what will happen if we copy this formula to the next column? F will change to G. Do I want F to change to G? No, we don't want, because we want 10% of the same column, that is F, and 15% of the same column, that is F. That means we want to fix only the column. So same thing, put a dollar before the column name or press F4 3 times. So what have we done? We have fixed the column in one part of the formula and we have fixed the row in the other part, depending on the requirement here. So this type of referencing, where we either fix the column or the row, we call it as mixed reference. Now let's see what is the benefit here. Now I enter this and what do you get here? You get the result. You just copy it. Did you rewrite the formula for the first column? No. Let's copy it to the next 2 columns. So what do we get? We get 10% of the same number. So what is changing? Now if you look at my screen here, my amount column remains fixed, and my, yes, the discount percentage variance amount column remains, keeps on changing. But when it is copied down, my row of the variance, that is 15% or 10%, remains at the same level, that is row number 2. So this is what the concept of relative referencing and fixed referencing is. So what we need to do is, this gives us a benefit of writing one-time formulas here. So it makes Excel or your formulas or you as an individual more effective in writing formulas, so that you do your work faster. You don't need to worry about anything. So this part of the document which I have just highlighted, or the Excel sheet which I have just highlighted, is what is the core of today's session. Thank you for listening. Look forward for another session a little bit more on this aspect of relative referencing and fixed referencing, which can be done in a much easier manner. So see you in the next video. Subscribe and like the video. Thank you.